The final 5 minutes, and it will be a bit of a shootout for the top time because the track conditions are gradually improving. You can actually start to see now a drying line here in Magny-Cours. Jonathan Rea puts in a new fastest lap time of this afternoon session, a 1 minute 49.379. Also the fastest he's been today, of course, because he didn't get any dry running before it started raining at the end of the first 5 minutes of FP1. So Rea's fastest time earlier on today was a 1 minute 50.8. That's a 1 minute 49.3.
Yeah, we saw Jonathan just running a little wide through turn one there as well. Bautista heads out. You can see there the damage to the fairing, that right wing off that Ducati, but able to head on out for these final 5 minutes and pick up some knowledge as well. So as Dave said, no major issues down there.
Yes, I've heard of asymmetric tyres, but not necessarily asymmetric wings or fairings. Hopefully for Bautista, this is just for him to check that the machine is okay, more than anything, I suspect, because this will be the last chance to do it before going out tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's important to check the machine's okay. It's also important for Alvaro just to go back out there and not have the last thing in his mind being that crash. Instead, the last thing in his mind could be Michael van der Mark and Toprak just coming down the inside through Estoril. But for Bautista, important to be able to get himself out there, and that's good for Ducati as well.
Yes, he's just got to be sure that he doesn't, without the aid of that second wing at the front of the bike, doesn't have any further incident in the remaining minutes of this session, because that would rather defeat the object of him going out. We're going to see Jonathan Rea running wide here at turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, Jonathan's just going to run in a little bit wide. You can see that little moment that he has there, a bit like what we spoke about earlier on for Van der Mark. You see for Jonathan, he's pretty aware that he got away with one there.
Yes, and manages to live to fight another day. Parriba grimacing at that as we make our way into the final few minutes of free practice 2. Jonathan Rea is the fastest man. Axel Bassani and Alex Lowe's, who set their times a little bit earlier on in the session, are both in the pit still, and Jonathan Rea is now going to join them. So I suspect that's the end of the session for him. It's not the end of the session though for Axel Bassani. He's making his way down pit lane, and of course Alvaro Bautista just completing his installation lap, if indeed he does turn out to do another flying lap in the final few minutes here this afternoon. And 1:49.379 will be the time to beat. Inevitably, the headline story of a fairly quiet day as far as these two sessions have been, with drying track on both occasions, will be that spell for Alvaro Bautista. And if there wasn't enough press about how it was Rea versus Razgatlioglu and Bautista just needed to hang on to their coattails this weekend and not lose too much ground, that'll certainly be the discussion point now.
Yeah, I think from Bautista's crash, from Garrett Gerloff's crash, and could see that the GRT squad's been able to get him back out in the session. But for their crashes, and even for Locatelli and Rinaldi this morning, Bernardi's gone down as well, I think it shows just how quickly something can go wrong in the wet conditions. And that's 5 riders that have all had crashes with minimal warning, and I think there was 4 of them on the front end, and then the big high side for Gerloff as well. So that shows you just how easy it is to have an incident. That's going to make sure everyone's very aware of that if we have a wet race over the weekend.
Put it this way, Steve, if you're Alvaro Bautista or even Michael Ruben Rinaldi on the other Ducati, the thing you'll want the least of is Rea. If you're Jonathan Rea, if you're Toprak Razgatlioglu, maybe you just feel that actually your chances of picking up big points compared to Bautista are even greater with the international lottery that is the wet weather conditions here in Magny-Cours.
Yeah, I think it's one of those strange situations where there's very few riders, if any rider, that really wants a wet weather race. Most of them will be able to adapt to it better than others, and then they're not as disappointed if it's wet. But you do have some riders, especially if you're championship leader Alvaro Bautista, on a bike that he's had a crash now today. We saw Rinaldi have a crash on the same bike. Bernardi on the Ducati goes down as well. If there's a wet weather race, that could be something that just plays in the back of your mind as well. And the last thing you want to be is a little bit uncertain, a little bit cautious out there, because there's so many riders that won't be cautious. There's so many riders that will be out there trying to push something and get their good result.
Yeah, so Bautista may well be having a word with Zeus tonight and asking for that lightning to stop overnight and for us to have a dry day tomorrow as he makes his way back round through the first set.
Interestingly, there, Garrett Gerloff's just set his first time in this stint, and he's just set his fastest time of the day as well. So that's good stuff there from the GRT Yamaha rider, immediately able to give himself something that's going to build that confidence as well.
Yes, 1 minute 52.393 for Garrett Gerloff with just 30 seconds of the session remaining. He will now be completing his final lap as Alvaro Bautista comes in to braking for the Adelaide hairpin. It is the heaviest braking area on the circuit, and Alvaro Bautista has been hitting about 260 kilometers per hour just before the braking point in towards turn number 5, and actually not a bad first sector from him on what is going to be his final lap.
Yeah, personal best sector 1 just about to come through to the end of sector 2 as well, and for Alvaro, he's again on course for a personal best, so he's willing to push pretty hard on that outlap. He may not have that right wing on the front of the Ducati, but he's still able to push pretty hard.
And inevitably, the final lap of the session will give us the peak conditions, because the track has gradually dried out after that rain towards the beginning of free practice 2, and we're watching Kota Nazane here because he's on a much improved lap, down in 14th position at the moment in the session. Loses a little bit of ground through sector 3. It was a stronger start to the lap than it has been in the second half of it. Alvaro Bautista is going to get to the line, as is Andrea Locatelli, all set to improve in the closing moments of FP2. Scott Redding, 5th fastest as things stand. It's Ray Bassani, Lowe's, Rinaldi, Redding. Gerloff's now gone 4th fastest, 1 minute 51.755, but Alvaro Bautista pips him for P4, 1 minute 51.118. Let's see what other changes there might be in the latter stages of the session. Kota Nazane in the end went P8, ahead of Michael van der Mark in 9th, and Toprak Razgatlioglu, who'd already rejoined pit lane. But that'll be a confidence booster for Alvaro Bautista to have gone down on the circuit, to bring the bike back to the pits. Thankfully, he crashed at the Lycée Complex anyway, so he was nice and close to getting back to the pits. Gets back to the pits, little check over of the bike that we heard about from Dave, and then Bautista straight back out and sets a new personal best for the session.